Hello friends, welcome aboard the Sleepy Fairy Tale Express. I'm the Red Mermaid. This train is a dream journey to fairy tale land. Have you all got your train tickets? Subscribe and hit the like button to always be able to ride. Close your eyes, prick up your ears, and listen in a comfortable position. Today's story is Ivan the Fool. After walking for a long time, a small farmhouse appeared in the middle of a deep forest. This place seemed like it was straight out of a fairy tale, with trees waving their green leaves and shading the sky, and a gentle breeze softly enveloping the forest. Around the farmhouse, colorful flowers bloomed, and butterflies danced among them. Sunlight broke through the trees and warmly illuminated the farmhouse. The farmhouse was a cozy, quaint house, but it looked somewhat small from the outside. The house, made of bricks, had a red roof with a small chimney standing straight towards the sky. Around the house, there was a well-tended garden where various vegetables and fruit trees grew abundantly. A little further from the farmhouse, there was a small barn and a stable where chickens and ducks roamed freely, adding to the peaceful atmosphere. A farmer lived in this house with his 3 sons. The farmer worked hard every day for his family, and his 3 sons helped with the farm work in their own ways. However, the house was a bit small and cramped, which made the 3 brothers quite dissatisfied. The eldest son was greedy and somewhat selfish. He always wanted bigger and better things, and the small house made him feel cramped. "This house is too small," the eldest son complained, his voice tinged with annoyance like a spring rain. His eyebrows furrowed as he expressed his displeasure. The second son was lazy. He disliked work and wanted to lie around all day. "This place is so boring," the second son chimed in. His tone was filled with laziness and lethargy, and he slouched in his chair, staring blankly at the sky with a sigh. But the youngest son, Ivan, was different. He went out to the fields every day to plow and helped with the household chores, working diligently. Ivan didn't complain about the small house or the simple life. Instead, he was grateful for the tasks he was given and always maintained a bright and positive attitude. Ivan's heart was always cheerful, and his laughter brightened the surroundings. "Let's work hard today too," Ivan would always shout as he started his day. No matter how hard the work was, Ivan never lost his smile. He would wake up before sunrise and head to the fields. The early morning air was fresh and invigorating, and the dew-covered grass glistened in the sunlight. Ivan took a deep breath and began his day. "Haha, today is another great day," he would say, striding energetically. Various crops grew in the fields. Corn stalks reached high towards the sky, and potatoes ripened plumply underground. Ivan stood in the middle of the field, looking around. "Seeing these abundant crops makes me happy," he said to himself with a radiant smile. Ivan worked in the fields all day. He plowed the land, pulled weeds, and watered the crops. His hands were covered in dirt, but he found happiness even in that. The smell of the earth is wonderful, Ivan said, looking at the dirt on his hands. His bright laughter filled the fields, and the birds chirped joyfully along with his laughter. The villagers often found Ivan's constant smile puzzling. He always smiles like that, Ivan must be a fool. The villagers didn't understand Ivan's kind heart and called him Ivan the Fool. People teased and laughed at Ivan, but he didn't mind at all. He always smiled brightly and quietly did his work diligently. One day, Ivan went to the village market. The market was bustling with vendors selling their goods, and people were busy haggling. Ivan took a spot to sell his produce. In front of him, fresh vegetables and fruits were neatly arranged. "Ivan, you're smiling again today." The villagers passing by laughed at him. "Yes, it's a good day today," Ivan replied with a bright smile. Ivan's positive attitude was a refreshing shock to many people. They admired his cheerful nature, but also mocked his simplicity. However, Ivan didn't care about those looks. He quietly did his work and lived each day sincerely. One day, on his way back home after selling at the market, Ivan met an old man struggling with a heavy load. Ivan couldn't just pass by. "Sir, can I help you?" Ivan asked kindly, lifting the old man's load. The old man looked at Ivan with grateful eyes. "Thank you so much, Ivan. You are a kind person." Ivan's smile grew even brighter. "You're welcome. I'm glad I could help." Ivan carried the load to the old man's house, and the old man offered him a warm cup of tea in gratitude. "Ivan, you are truly a good person. People may call you a fool, but I don't think so." The old man's words made Ivan smile even more brightly. "Thank you, sir. I'm just doing what I should." One day, the devil heard about Ivan from deep within the earth. Hearing about Ivan's diligence and kind heart, the devil decided to trouble him. "Ivan the Fool? Hee, I'll have some fun with him." The devil, with a wicked grin, headed to the field where Ivan was working. The devil's eyes glowed a sinister red, and his sharp, black claws gleamed. The devil's presence, rising from deep within the earth, was eerie and chilling. Ivan was plowing the field as usual that day. The sun was high in the sky, shining brightly, and sweat was beading on Ivan's forehead. "Let's go strong today too." Ivan grabbed the plow and started plowing the land with all his might. He plunged the plow deep into the ground, using the muscles in his arms to turn the soil. Ivan's face was still full of smiles, and his eyes burned with passion for his work. At that moment, the devil quietly appeared and clung to the end of Ivan's plow. The devil applied his heavy weight, trying to pull the plow back, but Ivan didn't notice at all. Huff, huff, why is plowing so hard today? Ivan wondered as he worked even harder. The devil tried to tire Ivan out, but Ivan was oblivious to the devil's tricks. Ivan took a break and drank some water. His face was still full of smiles, and that smile was as bright and warm as the sunlight. Seeing Ivan's contentment only made the devil angrier. This fool! Why isn't he getting angry? The devil thought, unable to contain his rising anger. The devil devised a new prank. This time, he decided to ruin the crops Ivan had painstakingly grown. While Ivan was away, the devil stomped all over the crops, making a mess. The potato field was trampled with the devil's footprints, and the corn stalks were broken everywhere. This time he'll definitely get angry, the devil thought with a satisfied grin. When Ivan returned, he saw his ruined field but didn't seem upset. Oh, my crops! What happened here? Ivan thought for a moment, but quickly decided to get a bigger sickle and get to work. This is a big problem, an ordinary sickle won't do. I'll need a bigger one. Ivan thought positively and sought a solution. Ivan brought a bigger sickle and began to tidy up the crops. His touch was delicate and careful as he straightened and reorganized each plant. This should help them grow well again. Ivan muttered to himself with a bright smile. His smile remained warm and bright, and his eyes were full of hope. One sunny day, Ivan went out to the field early in the morning. The sun shone warmly, and the birds chirped joyfully. The sky was clear and blue, and a gentle breeze brushed against Ivan's face as he crossed the field towards his plot. The grass in the field was covered with dew, sparkling in the sunlight, and swayed gently in the breeze. Let's work hard today, Ivan said to himself as he grabbed the plow and began tilling the field. He plunged the plow deep into the ground, using the muscles in his arms to turn the soil. Ivan's face was still full of smiles, and his eyes burned with a passion for his work. His hands were rough and calloused, but he worked diligently with those hands. At that moment, the devil quietly approached and clung to the end of Ivan's plow. The devil dug his sharp, black claws into the plow and used his heavy weight to drag it down. But Ivan, unaware that the devil was clinging to his plow, worked even harder. Huff, huff, why is plowing so hard today? Ivan muttered, wiping the sweat from his brow. Ivan tightened his grip on the plow and pushed it deeper into the ground. Bugs wriggled in the soil, and the earth broke softly beneath Ivan's feet. Though it was tough, Ivan's face still held a smile. Today is another great day, Ivan muttered to himself with a bright smile. The devil continued to weigh down the plow, trying to exhaust Ivan, but Ivan only worked harder. The veins stood out on Ivan's hands, and sweat streamed down his arms. Despite the difficulty, Ivan didn't give up. "I have to work. The field is waiting for me," Ivan said, clutching his aching arm and continuing to till the soil. Seeing Ivan's perseverance only infuriated the devil more. "How can this fool not give up?" the devil thought, his anger rising. He decided to come up with a bigger prank. This time, he planned to disrupt Ivan's lunch break. The devil quietly approached Ivan's lunchbox as Ivan went to eat. When it was lunchtime, Ivan sat under a large tree behind the farmhouse. The tree provided ample shade, and the ground beneath was covered with soft grass. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating small patches of light on the ground, and the breeze rustled the leaves, making a refreshing sound. Ivan sat down under the tree and opened his lunchbox. Food tastes better when it's packed by Mom," Ivan thought, his eyes gleaming with anticipation as he opened the lunchbox. Inside were warm rice, fresh vegetables, and well-cooked meat. The rice had a sprinkle of lightly roasted seaweed on top, and the vegetables included crisp cucumbers and sweet carrots. The meat was crispy and glistening with juices. Ivan began eating with joy. With each bite, Ivan's face lit up with happiness. "Ah, this is so good," he thought, savoring the food slowly. His face always carried a bright smile, and his eyes were filled with gratitude. Eating the food filled with his mother's love and care made Ivan realize how blessed he was. At that moment, the devil sneaked up and spat into Ivan's food. The devil watched Ivan's reaction with a satisfied smile. Suddenly, Ivan's stomach began to ache. "Oh, my stomach! Why does it hurt so suddenly?" Ivan exclaimed, clutching his stomach with a look of surprise. His face contorted in pain, and sweat began to bead on his forehead. The devil chuckled inwardly, thinking Ivan would be unable to work. He won't be able to work with a stomachache." The devil was pleased with his prank, thinking it was successful. But Ivan had no idea about the devil's plan. Ivan writhed in pain for a moment, but did not give up. Ivan took a break, trying to overcome the pain. He took deep breaths, calming his mind. "I have to work, the field is waiting for me," Ivan told himself, standing up again. His face still bore a smile, and his eyes were filled with determination. Ivan clutched his aching stomach and continued his work in the field. Ivan's stomachache caused him to momentarily writhe in pain. He held his stomach with one hand and steadied himself on the ground with the other, trying to catch his breath. Sweat beaded on his forehead, and pain was etched on his face. But after a moment, Ivan made a firm decision and stood up. "I have to work. The field is waiting for me," Ivan told himself, grabbing the plow once more. Ivan returned to the field and picked up the plow. His hands still trembled, and the pain in his stomach persisted, but he did not stop. He took deep breaths, exhaling slowly to overcome the pain. He plunged the plow deep into the ground, using the muscles in his arms to turn the soil. Ivan's face still held a smile, and his eyes burned with passion for his work. Ivan's hands were rough and calloused, but he worked diligently with those hands. Each time the plow turned the soil, the earth broke apart softly, and Ivan felt a small sense of accomplishment. "The smell of the earth is wonderful," Ivan said, looking at the dirt on his hands. His bright laughter filled the field, and the birds chirped joyfully along with his laughter. The devil, seeing Ivan's perseverance, grew even angrier. "How can this fool not give up?" the devil thought, planning an even bigger prank. This time, he decided to ruin Ivan's field after Ivan returned home. As night fell, Ivan, exhausted, returned home. He washed his hands and face with warm water and went to have dinner. His family always welcomed him warmly. "You worked hard today, Ivan." His mother greeted him with a warm smile, setting a delicious meal on the table. Ivan shared dinner with his family, easing the day's fatigue. His face still held a smile, and his eyes were filled with love and gratitude for his family. But while Ivan slept, the devil sneaked into his field. The devil trampled Ivan's barley field, making a mess. The barley stalks were broken and scattered, and the entire field was in disarray. "This time, he'll definitely get angry," the devil thought, smiling with satisfaction. He disappeared into the darkness, anticipating Ivan's shock the next morning. At dawn, Ivan went to check his barley field under the blue sky. The sun was gently rising, and the morning dew sparkled. The fresh, crisp air of dawn was filled with the songs of birds, and the field seemed to be waking up with Ivan. He walked towards the field with light, lively steps, his heart filled with the joy of a new day. However, the sight that greeted Ivan at the barley field was heartbreaking. "Oh, my barley field, what has happened here?" The field looked like it had been ravaged by a giant storm. Barley stalks were broken and scattered everywhere, and the entire field was in disarray. Ivan was momentarily shocked, but soon gathered himself and decided to tackle the situation. "This is serious. A regular sickle won't do. I need a bigger one," Ivan thought as he headed back home to get a larger sickle. He returned to the barley field with a bigger sickle in hand. Despite the disarray, Ivan's face still held a smile, and his eyes were filled with determination. "This should help them grow well again," Ivan muttered to himself as he started working. Ivan began to clear the broken barley stalks with the large sickle. His touch was delicate and careful as he straightened and organized each stalk. Even while working, Ivan never lost his bright smile. His smile was as warm as sunshine, and his eyes were filled with hope. Thanks to Ivan's efforts, the barley field was soon back in order. Ivan gathered the broken stalks into a pile and tenderly cared for the surviving barley. "Now they will grow well again," Ivan whispered to himself, beaming with a radiant smile. His smile remained bright and warm, and his eyes were still filled with determination. The devil watched Ivan with growing frustration. "This fool! Why isn't he getting angry?" the devil thought, unable to contain his boiling anger. He decided to come up with an even bigger prank. This time, he planned to sabotage Ivan's sickle. Seeing that Ivan calmly resumed work with a larger sickle instead of getting upset, the devil grew even more enraged. "This fool! Why isn't he getting angry?" the devil thought, seething with frustration. Determined to make Ivan truly angry this time, the devil decided on a new plan. Ivan continued to work with the larger sickle, still smiling brightly. His touch was delicate and careful, as he straightened and organized each barley stalk. Thanks to Ivan's efforts, the barley field was soon back in order. Ivan gathered the broken stalks into a pile and tenderly cared for the surviving barley. "Now they will grow well again," Ivan whispered to himself, beaming with a radiant smile. The devil decided to take things further. This time, he planned to break Ivan's sickle. He waited until Ivan took a break and tried to steal the sickle. However, the sickle was heavier than he expected, and the devil struggled to carry it away. Realizing his plan might fail, the devil thought of an even bigger prank. At that moment, the devil came up with a clever trick. "This time, I'll really make him angry," he thought, gripping the sickle tightly. But Ivan, unaware of the devil's presence, swung the sickle effortlessly. In that instant, the sickle cut off the devil's tail. "Ouch, my tail!" the devil screamed in pain, hopping away and hiding among the barley stalks. Ivan, unaware of what had happened, continued his work diligently. His face still held a happy expression, and his eyes burned with passion for his work. He finished his tasks for the day and returned home with a smile on his face. Ivan used a pitchfork to load barley into a cart. Suddenly, he saw a small, furry, black creature dangling from the end of his pitchfork. "Ouch!" the devil cried, clutching his tail in pain. The devil's face was contorted with pain, and his eyes were filled with fear. "What is this?" Ivan asked, looking at the devil with curious eyes. The devil struggled to free himself from Ivan's grip, but it was too late. Ivan held the devil firmly, wondering what to do next. Ivan's touch was strong yet gentle, and his eyes were full of curiosity. Ivan gazed at the devil and slowly asked, "Who are you? Why were you in my field?" Ivan's voice was soft and warm. He didn't fear the devil, but was rather curious about him. The devil, surprised by Ivan's reaction, hesitated before speaking. I'm just a passing devil. I had no intention of staying in your field. Ivan tilted his head and looked at the devil. Really? But you tried to ruin my field and spoil my food, Ivan said without any hint of scolding in his voice. Instead, he sounded concerned and curious. He wanted to understand why the devil had done such things. The devil, taken aback by Ivan's warm demeanor, realized he couldn't make excuses for his actions. I'm sorry, Ivan. I just wanted to play a prank. You are too kind and always smiling, so I wanted to make you angry, the devil confessed, hanging his head. Ivan thought for a moment. Despite the devil's words, he still smiled warmly. If you truly regret what you've done, why don't you work with me? Ivan suggested. Help me tend the field and let's make this place better together. Ivan's offer was sincere, and his eyes were filled with hope. The devil, shocked by Ivan's suggestion, widened his eyes. It was the first time anyone had given him a chance. Do you really mean it? The devil asked with a trembling voice. Ivan nodded and smiled. Yes, everyone makes mistakes. What's important is what we learn from them. The devil accepted Ivan's generous offer, but he couldn't shake off the fear and guilt of his actions. Please spare me. I will give you a root that cures any illness, the devil pleaded with a terrified voice. His face was twisted with fear, and his eyes were filled with desperation. The devil had offered his last resort to save his life. Ivan hesitated for a moment, torn between accepting the devil's offer and forgiving him. But Ivan's nature was kind and compassionate. He couldn't ignore the devil's plea. Ivan took a deep breath and made a decision. All right, I will trust you, Ivan said gently. His eyes still held warmth and compassion. But promise me you will never do bad things again. Ivan warned the devil, taking the root. The root looked small and insignificant, but it held powerful magic within. The devil, hearing Ivan's words, fled quickly. He was grateful for Ivan's mercy and vowed never to do bad things again. Ivan looked at the root in his hand and muttered to himself, "Can this really help someone?" His mind was filled with both doubt and hope. Ivan returned home and told his family about his encounter with the devil and the magic root. At first, his family was shocked and found it hard to believe, but seeing the seriousness in Ivan's eyes, they decided to trust him. Ivan, if you can really help someone with this root, it would be a great deed, his mother encouraged him with a warm smile. Ivan treasured the root, thinking about how to use it. He decided to help the sick people in the village. Ivan told the villagers about the magic root and its healing powers. Initially, the villagers were skeptical, but Ivan's earnest eyes convinced them to believe in him. With the root clutched tightly in his hand, Ivan set off for the palace like a knight embarking on a quest. His heart was filled with hope as he traveled. The journey was long and arduous, but Ivan never gave up. As he walked along the path, he saw green fields and lush forests, feeling the beauty of nature and the animals around him. Butterflies danced among the flowers, and birds sang from the branches of trees. On his way, Ivan arrived at a village. The villagers had posted notices everywhere, announcing a great reward for anyone who could cure the princess's illness. A great reward for anyone who cures the princess, the notices read, and everyone in the village was aware of it. Ivan, seeing the notice, resolved to use the root to cure the princess. With a slightly trembling heart but filled with hope, he pushed open the heavy doors of the palace. The palace doors were grand and imposing. As soon as Ivan entered, he was struck by the palace's splendor. The marble floors sparkled, and beautiful paintings adorned the walls. The ceiling was high and vast, with magnificent chandeliers casting a bright glow. As Ivan walked through the hall, he felt all eyes on him. "Isn't that Ivan the Fool? How can he possibly cure the princess?" The courtiers and nobles whispered among themselves. People were surprised and murmured as they saw Ivan, but he ignored their mockery and approached the king confidently. His eyes were filled with determination, and his face still bore a bright smile. Ivan bowed respectfully before the king. "Your Majesty, I will cure the princess with this root," Ivan declared. Initially, everyone looked at him with skepticism, but the king, desperate to heal his daughter, decided to give Ivan a chance. "Ivan, if you can truly cure the princess, the reward will be yours," the king said, his voice earnest. Ivan took the root and headed towards the princess's chamber. The princess's room was in the highest part of the palace. The path to her room was long and winding, but Ivan never faltered. He climbed the stairs and walked through the corridors, firm in his resolve. "I must cure the princess," Ivan muttered to himself, drawing strength from his determination. Reaching the princess's chamber, Ivan carefully opened the door and entered. The room was filled with a quiet stillness, and soft sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a gentle glow. The princess lay in bed, her face pale and her illness evident. Ivan's heart ached at the sight, but he did not give up. Gently, Ivan placed the root in the princess's mouth. She swallowed it with some difficulty, and Ivan waited quietly by her side. Slowly, color returned to the princess's face. As her illness faded, her beauty and vitality were restored, and her eyes began to sparkle again. "It's a miracle," the palace doctors exclaimed. "The princess is cured." Ivan felt all eyes on him as he walked into the magnificent hall of the palace. Isn't that Ivan the fool? How can he possibly cure the princess? The courtiers and nobles whispered among themselves, looking at Ivan's simple attire and humble expression with disbelief. But Ivan, unfazed by their mockery, walked confidently towards the king. The king looked at Ivan with a solemn expression. "Ivan, can you truly cure the princess?" The king's voice was a mix of doubt and hope. Ivan took a deep breath and replied, "Yes, Your Majesty. I will cure the princess with this root." Ivan's voice was filled with conviction. The king decided to accept Ivan's offer. "Very well, Ivan. If you cure the princess, you will receive a great reward." The king ordered his servants to escort Ivan to the princess's chamber. As Ivan walked through the grand corridors of the palace, he was momentarily dazzled by its splendor but quickly refocused on his mission. When Ivan entered the princess's chamber, he found it calm and serene. Sunlight filtered through the windows, softly illuminating the room. The princess lay in bed, her face pale and her illness apparent. Her breathing was faint and weak, and her eyes were closed. Seeing the princess in such a state, Ivan felt a deep sorrow but did not waver. Carefully, Ivan placed the root in the princess's mouth. She swallowed it with some difficulty, and Ivan waited patiently by her side. Gradually, the color began to return to her face. As her illness faded, her beauty and vitality were restored, and her eyes began to sparkle again. "It's truly remarkable," the palace doctors exclaimed. "The princess is cured." The king was deeply moved by Ivan's courage and wisdom. "Ivan, you have truly cured the princess. I am grateful for your bravery and dedication," the king said with genuine appreciation. Everyone in the palace looked at Ivan with respect and admiration, praising his actions. The king carefully gave the root to the princess, and everyone watched with bated breath as the princess's pallor began to fade. Her face regained its color, and her eyes sparkled with life once more. The entire palace was filled with amazement and joy. "It's a miracle! The princess is cured," the palace doctors shouted with admiration, and the king spoke with joy in his voice. "Ivan, you have truly healed our princess. You are a hero to this kingdom." The king hugged Ivan warmly, expressing his gratitude. The princess rose from her bed and approached Ivan, tears of gratitude in her eyes. "Ivan, you are my savior." "I don't know how to thank you enough," the princess said, wiping away her tears. The palace was filled with joy and celebration. Ivan's courage and wisdom inspired everyone, and they chanted his name in praise. The king promised Ivan a great reward and proposed a marriage between Ivan and the princess. "Ivan, you have saved our princess's life, and now you deserve to be part of our family. "Marry the princess and become a prince of this kingdom," the king said. Ivan, surprised, widened his eyes. "Your Majesty, I only wish to help the princess. I don't know if I deserve such a great reward," Ivan said humbly. But with the king and the princess's earnest request, Ivan finally agreed to the marriage. "Ivan, you are our hope and joy. Marry me and help protect this kingdom," the princess said with heartfelt emotion. Ivan, moved, nodded in agreement. Their wedding was celebrated with a grand festival throughout the kingdom. The palace's grand hall was decorated with beautiful flowers, and people cheered in celebration. Ivan and the princess stood together, holding hands in their beautiful attire. "Ivan, we will be together forever," the princess said, tears glistening in her eyes. "Yes, princess. I will protect you for the rest of my life," Ivan replied with a warm smile. After the wedding, Ivan and the princess began their happy life in the palace. Ivan continued to work diligently, taking care of the kingdom alongside the princess. Their love grew stronger, and the palace was always filled with laughter and joy. Ivan began his new life in the palace, but his diligence and enthusiasm remained unchanged. He still woke up early in the morning, starting his day before sunrise. Ivan would tend to the palace gardens, beginning his day with this task. The gardens were vast and beautiful, filled with various flowers and trees. Ivan, with the help of the gardeners, cared for the plants, watering them and trimming the branches with great care. The garden flourished under Ivan's touch. Roses bloomed more fragrantly, and the trees grew greener. Birds chirped joyfully to Ivan's songs, and butterflies danced among the flowers. Even while working, Ivan never lost his bright smile. His face radiated happiness and contentment. After tending the garden, Ivan would take on other tasks in the palace. He helped in the kitchen with cooking and took part in cleaning. Everyone in the palace was touched by Ivan's dedication and warm heart. "Ivan, thanks to you, the palace feels brighter and warmer," the servants would say. Ivan, hearing these words, would respond with a radiant smile. "If everyone is happy, then I am happy too." The princess always stayed by Ivan's side. She spent time with him in the garden, listening to his stories and laughing heartily. Their love deepened day by day. They dined together and worked together, supporting each other. Ivan would pick a new flower for the princess every day. "This flower is for you," Ivan would say, handing it to her. The princess, touched, would accept the flower and kiss Ivan. "Ivan, you are my light." Ivan's diligence and warm heart also deeply impressed the king and queen. "Ivan, thanks to you, our kingdom is brighter and more peaceful," the king would say, praising him. Ivan, humble as always, would bow his head and reply, "Your Majesty, I am only doing my duty." My wish is for everyone to be happy. The king and queen entrusted Ivan with more important tasks. He was given the responsibility of managing the kingdom's agriculture, working with farmers to cultivate better crops. He shared his knowledge and experience with the farmers, helping them improve their yields. Ivan, thanks to you, our harvests are more abundant, the farmers would say gratefully. Ivan, hearing this, would respond joyfully, if everyone can live well, then I am happy too. Ivan also worked to ensure the kingdom's peace. He held meetings with the king to discuss and solve the kingdom's issues. Ivan's wisdom and courage were a great inspiration to many. Ivan, thanks to you, our kingdom is safer and more peaceful. The king expressed his gratitude. Ivan, smiling humbly, replied, Your Majesty, I am only doing my duty. My wish is for everyone to live in peace. Ivan and the princess spent their days happily, their love growing stronger with each passing day. They spent time together, laughing and supporting each other. Ivan's laughter brightened every corner of the palace. Ivan was no longer Ivan the Fool but a beloved and respected prince. His name spread throughout the kingdom, and people praised his warm heart and diligence. Ivan and the princess continued to achieve many great things together. They worked hard to further develop the kingdom, bringing hope and love to everyone. Ivan's story remained in people's hearts for generations, and the courage and love he embodied were passed down through the ages. Ivan and the princess lived happily ever after, their love and hope forever lighting up the kingdom. One day, while the kingdom was peacefully thriving, a messenger hurriedly ran into the palace. His face was pale and drenched in sweat. Your Majesty, we have grave news. There are rumors of war from the neighboring kingdom. The messenger's voice trembled with fear and urgency. Ivan and the princess, upon hearing the news, immediately gathered the council to assess the situation. In the council chamber, the kingdom's top officials and military leaders assembled. The atmosphere was tense as Ivan carefully explained the situation. We've received reports that the neighboring kingdom is preparing for war. We must take this threat seriously and prepare our defenses. Ivan's voice was resolute, but his eyes betrayed his worry. He prioritized the kingdom's safety and began discussing various strategies with the council. The princess stood by his side, holding his hand firmly, offering him courage and resolve to face the difficult situation. As the meeting progressed, the council members presented their opinions. Some advocated for strengthening the military, while others suggested diplomatic efforts to avoid war. Ivan listened carefully to all opinions, seeking the best course of action. Strengthening our military is important, but we should first try to resolve this issue through diplomatic means. Ivan decided to prioritize diplomatic solutions. He instructed the council to gather intelligence on the neighboring kingdom and explore ways to maintain peace. We do not desire war. If we can resolve this peacefully, it will be the best solution. Ivan's decision was firm, and his voice carried strong conviction. After the meeting, Ivan and the princess went to the garden. The garden was still beautiful and peaceful, but Ivan's heart was heavy. "Princess, do you think we can overcome this difficult situation?" Ivan asked, his face filled with concern. The princess held Ivan's hand tightly and smiled gently. "Ivan, with your wisdom and courage, we can overcome anything. I believe in you." Ivan found solace in the princess's words. Renewed with determination, he vowed to do everything in his power to protect the kingdom. "Thank you, Princess. Your courage and wisdom give me strength. We will overcome this crisis together," Ivan said, his resolve strengthened by the love and support of the princess. Ivan convened a meeting with the wise ministers of the kingdom to devise a plan to avoid war. He outlined a strategic plan and worked on strengthening the kingdom's defenses. Ivan's wisdom and courage deeply impressed the ministers, and everyone united under his leadership. Standing in the center of the meeting room, Ivan unfolded a map of the kingdom. The map highlighted the kingdom's key terrain and defensive fortresses. Ivan pointed to the map and said, "We must first fortify our defenses. Let's repair the walls and strengthen our fortresses to prepare for any possible invasion." Following Ivan's instructions, the ministers took immediate action. The kingdom's soldiers worked tirelessly, day and night, repairing the walls and reinforcing the fortresses. Ivan personally visited the sites, working alongside the soldiers and boosting their morale. "Everyone, let's do our best to protect our kingdom. Together, we can overcome this." Ivan's voice was resolute, and his eyes shone with strong determination. In addition to strengthening defenses, Ivan also sought diplomatic solutions. He sent a letter proposing peace negotiations to the king of the neighboring kingdom. The letter contained a heartfelt message of peace and suggested ways for both kingdoms to prosper together through cooperation. Ivan meticulously prepared the letter to ensure it was well received. A few days later, an envoy from the neighboring kingdom arrived at Ivan's palace. Ivan warmly welcomed the envoy and led him to the meeting room. The envoy delivered a message from the neighboring king. "Prince Ivan, our king has taken your peace proposal seriously. We do not wish for war and seek to resolve this issue through peaceful negotiations." Relieved, Ivan listened to the envoy's words and began peace negotiations. Representatives from both kingdoms sat at the table, sharing their perspectives and drafting an agreement. Ivan led the negotiations with wisdom and caution, and eventually, the two kingdoms signed a peace treaty. After establishing a peace treaty with the neighboring kingdom, Ivan worked to solidify the alliance between the two kingdoms. He met with the neighboring king multiple times to discuss cooperative measures. Ivan used his diplomatic skills to build trust between the two nations. Ivan and the princess decided to visit the neighboring kingdom. Accompanied by several ministers, they embarked on the journey. After a long trek, they arrived at the gates of the neighboring kingdom. The king and queen of the neighboring kingdom warmly welcomed Ivan and his entourage. "Welcome to our kingdom, Prince Ivan," the neighboring king greeted them with a genuine smile. Ivan returned the greeting with courtesy. "Thank you for the invitation. I hope our two kingdoms can grow closer." Ivan and the neighboring king held long meetings to discuss various cooperative measures. They decided to collaborate militarily, promote mutual trade, and encourage cultural exchanges. Ivan and the neighboring king observed military drills together, witnessing how powerful their combined forces could be. To celebrate the alliance, a grand banquet was held. The banquet hall was lavishly decorated, and a variety of exquisite dishes and drinks were served. Nobles and officials from both kingdoms gathered to exchange greetings and celebrate. Music filled the air, and people danced, enjoying the festivities. Ivan and the princess danced in the center of the banquet, reaffirming their love. "Ivan, your wisdom and courage have saved our kingdom. Now, we can overcome any difficulties together," the princess expressed her gratitude to Ivan. Ivan gently held her hand and smiled. "Princess, as long as we are together, we can overcome any challenge." To commemorate the alliance, a grand festival was held throughout the kingdom. Ivan and the princess prepared the festival together, inviting all the people of the kingdom. The festival was celebrated everywhere, with streets adorned with colorful decorations, and everyone shared in the joy. On the day of the festival, Ivan and the princess, dressed in splendid attire, stood on the palace balcony. The people of the kingdom gathered in the square below, cheering for the couple. "Thank you, Prince Ivan and Princess," the people shouted joyfully. Ivan and the princess waved and smiled brightly. "Everyone, this festival is to celebrate our peace and prosperity. Let's enjoy it together." Ivan's voice was warm and powerful. The festival was filled with various events. Dancers performed in the streets, and musicians played music. The marketplace was brimming with food and goods, and people celebrated by sharing meals. Children ran around with colorful balloons, and laughter echoed everywhere. A special banquet was held in the palace gardens. Nobles and officials attended, enjoying a meal with Ivan and the princess. The garden was beautifully decorated with flowers, and each table was laden with sumptuous food. Ivan and the princess moved from table to table, greeting the guests. "Prince Ivan, Princess, this festival is wonderful. Thanks to you, our kingdom is peaceful and prosperous," a noble said to Ivan. Ivan smiled humbly and replied, "This is the result of everyone's effort. Let's continue to work together to make our kingdom even better. The highlight of the festival was the evening fireworks display. As the sky darkened, people gathered in the square, eagerly awaiting the fireworks. Ivan and the princess watched from the balcony. As the first firework burst into the sky, the crowd cheered. The sky was illuminated with colorful fireworks, creating a beautiful spectacle. Ivan, I am so happy to share this moment with you, the princess said, holding Ivan's hand tightly. Ivan smiled gently and replied, "Me too, princess. I hope our love and the kingdom's peace last forever." They looked into each other's eyes, reaffirming their love. After the festival, Ivan and the princess decided to explore the enchanted forest. This forest, located on the northern border of the kingdom, was known for its legends and mysteries. It was said that hidden treasures and ancient wisdom lay deep within the forest. Ivan and the princess, along with a few attendants, prepared for the journey and set off for the forest. They arrived at the forest entrance, where towering ancient trees stood like guardians. The trees reached high into the sky, their branches forming a canopy that shaded the forest floor. As they entered the forest, a thick shadow enveloped them, and the sounds of the forest created a feeling of entering another world. The forest was dense and deep, teeming with diverse flora and fauna. The trees were immense and ancient, covered with moss and vines. The forest floor was blanketed with various plants, and wildflowers bloomed in patches. Birds flitted through the branches, and the sounds of small animals scurrying echoed through the forest. As Ivan and the princess walked through the forest, they admired the surroundings. "Ivan, this place is so mysterious and beautiful. It feels like there are many secrets hidden here," the princess said, her eyes sparkling. Ivan nodded in agreement. "Yes, princess. There are probably many stories here that we haven't discovered yet." During their exploration, they found various fascinating things. Ancient ruins and mysterious creatures piqued their curiosity. After a long walk, they discovered a cave made of giant rocks. The entrance to the cave glowed dimly in the darkness, as if guarding a hidden secret. "Ivan, we should explore this cave. There might be something important hidden inside," the princess said with determination. Ivan and the princess entered the cave. Initially, it was narrow and dark, but as they ventured deeper, it widened and brightened. They walked along the cave walls cautiously, examining the ancient symbols and writings etched into the stone. These symbols are very old. "There might be important information here," Ivan said thoughtfully. As they reached the depths of the cave, they encountered a breathtaking sight. The cave was filled with enormous crystals that emitted a radiant light, creating a scene as beautiful as starlight. The crystals glowed in various colors, illuminating the cave. "This place is truly enchanting. Ivan, These crystals seem to hold some special power, the princess said in awe. Examining the light emitted by the crystals, Ivan said, "These crystals are not just beautiful, they might possess some special power. There could be ancient secrets hidden here." Ivan and the princess carefully investigated the cave, searching for clues hidden among the crystals. As Ivan and the princess continued their exploration deep into the cave, they encountered a prophet. The prophet was an elderly man with long white hair and a beard, and his eyes held a depth that seemed to see through everything. He sat meditating before an ancient altar within the cave. When Ivan and the princess approached, the prophet slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was warm and mysterious. "It has been many years. I knew you would come here," the prophet said in a calm voice. His voice was like the whispering wind. Ivan greeted the prophet and asked, "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" The prophet smiled and replied, "I am the guardian prophet of this place. I know much about the ancient secrets you seek. Your coming here is destiny." The prophet approached Ivan and the princess, extending his hand. "I have an important prophecy for you. It concerns the future of your kingdom." Ivan and the princess took the prophet's hand and nodded. "Prophet, please tell us the prophecy," Ivan said seriously. The prophet closed his eyes slowly and took a deep breath. A mystical light began to surround him. "Your kingdom will soon face a great crisis. But the power to overcome this crisis lies within you. Unravel the ancient secrets and find the legendary sword. That sword will give you the strength to protect your kingdom." Ivan and the princess felt a mix of surprise and fear at the prophet's words. "Prophet, where is this legendary sword?" the princess asked in a tense voice. The prophet smiled quietly and answered, "The sword is hidden deep within this forest. You will be able to find it. But to do so, you will need courage and wisdom." Taking the prophet's words to heart, Ivan and the princess left the cave. They ventured deeper into the forest, beginning their journey to find the legendary sword. The trees grew larger and denser, and the path became increasingly treacherous. Yet, Ivan and the princess never gave up. They held each other's hands tightly, determined to find the legendary sword together. Following the prophet's words, Ivan and the princess delved deeper into the forest to uncover the ancient secret. The forest became denser, with trees towering high into the sky. They carefully navigated through the thick forest, treading on soft moss, surrounded by the sounds of birds and rustling leaves. Soon, they discovered ancient ruins. The ruins were made of massive stones, covered in moss and vines. Mysterious symbols and inscriptions adorned the stone walls, giving a sense of life to the ancient carvings. Ivan touched the stone wall and said, "These inscriptions are very old. The secret we need to uncover must be here." The princess, with her experience in reading ancient texts, carefully examined the symbols. "Ivan, these inscriptions are related to ancient wisdom. If we find the clues hidden here, we can find the legendary sword," she said resolutely. They explored the ruins, interpreting the symbols on the old pillars, walls, and floors. The symbols led them deeper into the ruins. When they reached the center, they found a large altar. On the altar lay an ancient map and a box adorned with gold. Ivan carefully opened the box. Inside was a glowing crystal ball and ancient scrolls. As Ivan unrolled the scrolls, they contained detailed information about the legendary sword. "Here it is, information about the legendary sword," Ivan said excitedly. Reading the scrolls, Ivan and the princess learned that the legendary sword was hidden in the deepest part of the forest, protected by ancient magic. Only those with courage and wisdom could find it. "Ivan, do you think we can do this?" the princess asked with a worried expression. Ivan replied with determination, "Yes, we can. Together, we can overcome any challenge." With the scrolls in hand, they left the ruins and ventured back into the forest. The forest grew deeper and the path more difficult, but Ivan and the princess never gave up. They held each other's hands tightly, determined to find the legendary sword together. In the depths of the forest, Ivan and the princess faced various trials and challenges. Massive tree roots blocked their path, and dangerous animals crossed their way. The forest grew darker and colder. They encouraged each other to keep going. One day, they arrived at a narrow and deep gorge. To cross, they had to use a rickety wooden bridge. The bridge looked old and unsafe, with a deep, dark river flowing beneath it. The princess was frightened, but Ivan reassured her. "Princess, we can cross this bridge safely if we stick together." Ivan began to cross the bridge carefully. His steps were cautious, and the bridge creaked with each movement. The princess followed, but midway, she slipped and lost her balance. "Ivan, help me," she cried out in fear. Ivan quickly reached out his hand. "Princess, grab my hand." He pulled the princess back onto the bridge. She was in tears and expressed her gratitude to Ivan. "Thank you, Ivan. You saved me." Ivan smiled warmly and said, "Princess, we can overcome any obstacle together. Don't be afraid." They crossed the bridge safely and continued deeper into the forest. A few days later, they finally arrived at the ancient sanctuary. The sanctuary was surrounded by towering trees, with an ancient altar at its center. On the altar lay a glowing sword, the legendary sword. The princess, with a courageous heart, approached the altar. She reached out and grasped the sword. As she did, the sword glowed brightly, fitting perfectly in her hand. She turned to Ivan, holding the sword. "Ivan, this sword is something we found together. Let's use it to protect our kingdom." Ivan, filled with pride, replied, "Yes, princess. With this sword, we will protect our kingdom." With the legendary sword in hand, Ivan and the princess emerged from the forest and returned to the kingdom. The sword felt alive, radiating powerful and mystical energy. Holding the sword, Ivan and the princess embodied the very essence of majesty and courage. Upon their return, they presented the legendary sword to the king. Overwhelmed with emotion, the king shed tears. "Ivan, princess, you have done an extraordinary deed. This sword will be a great asset in protecting our kingdom," the king said, embracing them with gratitude. The kingdom rejoiced upon hearing the news of the sword's return. The streets filled with cheering people, welcoming Ivan and the princess. "Thank you, Prince Ivan and Princess. You have saved our kingdom," the people shouted joyfully. Ivan and the princess waved and smiled at the crowd. Using the sword's power, Ivan and the princess strengthened the kingdom's defenses. They reinforced the walls and fortified the strongholds with the sword's magic. The sword's power not only provided physical defense, but also instilled great courage and hope in the people's hearts. "This sword is our symbol of hope. With it, we will protect our kingdom," Ivan declared with resolve. The kingdom's soldiers were inspired by the sight of the legendary sword. They trained harder, dedicating themselves to defending the kingdom. Ivan trained alongside the soldiers, boosting their morale. "Everyone, we can overcome this together. This sword symbolizes our strength and courage. We will never back down." Ivan's words resonated deeply, and the soldiers cheered loudly. One day, news arrived that the enemy army had reached the kingdom's borders. The enemy forces were vast and powerful, causing tension to ripple through the entire kingdom. Ivan and the princess immediately began preparations for war. Ivan worked with the soldiers to strengthen the walls and revise their defensive strategies. Ivan personally went to the battlefield to boost the soldiers' morale. He stood before them, holding the legendary sword high. "Everyone, we will defend this kingdom. We are soldiers armed with courage and wisdom. This sword symbolizes our hope and bravery. Let's fight together and prevail." Ivan's voice was strong and resolute, and the soldiers cheered loudly at his words. The princess stayed in the rear, tending to the wounded and managing necessary resources. She continuously encouraged people, ensuring they didn't lose hope. "We can overcome this together. Our love and hope will protect this kingdom," she said with a warm smile, spreading encouragement among the people. When the battle began, the enemy launched a powerful attack. Arrows rained down, and the walls were fiercely assaulted. Ivan wielded the legendary sword, defending against the invaders. The sword's light disoriented the enemy, and Ivan's bravery inspired his troops. "We will not retreat. Fight to the end," Ivan shouted to his soldiers. The battle raged fiercely. The enemy relentlessly attacked, and the kingdom's soldiers defended with all their might. Ivan led his men through the enemy lines, using the sword to break their formations. His courage and wisdom inspired the soldiers, who fought valiantly alongside him. In the midst of the battle, the enemy general appeared before Ivan. He was a formidable warrior, eager to test Ivan's mettle. "Ivan, I will test your courage," the enemy general declared, initiating the duel. Ivan countered his attacks with the legendary sword, engaging in a fierce fight. They exchanged powerful blows, and the battle grew more intense. Using his wisdom and bravery, Ivan began to overpower the enemy general. The sword shone brightly in his hands, unleashing its mighty power. "We will win this battle. We will protect our kingdom," Ivan shouted as he delivered the final blow. The enemy general fell, and the enemy forces were thrown into disarray. The kingdom's soldiers cheered victoriously. "Long live Prince Ivan! We have protected our kingdom." Their voices echoed alongside the battle cries. The enemy, acknowledging their defeat, retreated. Ivan and the princess looked at each other and smiled. "We did it, princess. Our love and hope have protected this kingdom." After winning the final battle, Ivan and the princess brought peace to the kingdom. The legendary sword was returned to the altar, and the people of the kingdom held a grand festival to honor their heroes. The square was covered in flowers and vibrant decorations, and the faces of the people were filled with joy and gratitude. Ivan and the princess stood on the palace balcony, looking down at the crowd. The people cheered and waved at them. "Thank you, Prince Ivan and Princess. Because of you, our kingdom is saved," they shouted with joy. Ivan and the princess waved back, smiling brightly. "Everyone, we have overcome this together. Our courage and hope have protected this kingdom. Now, we enter an era of peace," Ivan said, his voice strong and warm. The people cheered again, louder than before. The festival continued for days, and the entire kingdom was filled with joy and celebration. After the festival, Ivan and the princess focused on rebuilding the kingdom. They worked to restore areas damaged by the war and stabilize the lives of the people. Ivan traveled across the kingdom, listening to the people's stories and understanding their needs. The princess comforted the people, giving them hope. "We have overcome this together. Now, we will rebuild together," she reassured them with a warm smile. Gradually, the kingdom regained its peace. Ivan and the princess implemented various policies to revive the kingdom's economy. They promoted trade, developed agriculture and industry. Under their leadership, the people began to prosper. Thanks to you, Prince Ivan and Princess, our lives are stable again. Thank you, the people expressed their gratitude. Ivan and the princess tirelessly worked for the kingdom's development. They encouraged education and culture, promising a better future for everyone. Schools and libraries were established across the kingdom, and the people found new hope through learning. Education is our future. We will all grow together, Ivan said warmly to the people. The kingdom entered an era of peace and prosperity. The people respected and loved one another, living happily together. Ivan and the princess were a great strength to everyone, and their love deepened day by day. Ivan, as long as we are together, we can overcome any difficulty. Our love and hope will protect this kingdom, the princess said, holding Ivan's hand tightly. Ivan smiled warmly and replied, "Yes, princess. Together, we will protect this kingdom." Ivan and the princess spent happy days with the people of the kingdom. Their story remained in the hearts of the people for generations, passing down the courage and love they had taught. The kingdom was peaceful and prosperous, and the people lived happily ever after. The love and hope of Ivan and the princess became an eternal light for the kingdom. you.